All right, so we're going to unpack this world of Black superheroes.
Okay.
You've given me so much to dig into
Yeah.
about how Marvel and DC have handled their representation.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm seeing some interesting stuff already.
Right.
We're going to be comparing how these characters come to life, and
Yep.
not just in the comics,
Mhm.
but in animation
Yeah.
and in live action too.
Okay.
And I think what our listeners are really interested in
Yeah.
is how those portrayals have evolved over time.
Right.
And really whether they've truly reflected
Mm-hmm.
that diversity and complexity of
Yeah.
the Black experience.
Yeah, and I think what's really intriguing
Mm-hmm.
is that both companies have had their high points
Yeah.
and they've had their struggles.
Right.
It's not a simple black and white picture.
Haha. No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended.
But yeah, it's nuanced, right?
Yeah.
It's not about saying one company is better
Right.
than the other.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the choices they made and the impact that those choices had.
Exactly.
So let's start with a point that came up in a few of your articles,
Let's
which
start.
is DC's dominance in animation, particularly in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah, that's a period where DC really did some groundbreaking work.
Yeah.
Shows like Static Shock and Justice League Unlimited
Mm-hmm.
really introduced a generation of kids
Yeah.
to black superheroes
Yeah.
who were not only powerful,
Right.
but also relatable
Yeah.
and dealing with real-world issues.
And it wasn't just about having Black characters on screen.
Right.
Static Shock tackled racism,
Yeah.
gang violence, even gun control.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty heavy stuff for a kid's show,
Yeah.
especially back then.
Yeah.
What's your take on their approach? Was it effective?
I think it was the delicate balancing act,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately a very successful one.
Yeah.
These shows introduced complex social issues
Yeah.
in a way that was accessible to younger viewers.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sparked a lot of important conversations
Yeah.
within families.
Right.
You know, they normalized seeing black heroes,
Yeah.
not just as sidekicks,
Mm.
but as leaders,
Yeah.
mentors,
Right.
and role models.
Mm.
John Stewart as Green Lantern in Justice League Unlimited,
Mm-hmm.
he presented this calm,
Yeah.
intellectual hero
Right.
who often acted as like the voice of reason
Right.
on the team.
It's interesting because while DC was making waves in animation,
Yeah.
their comic book representation was arguably lagging behind.
Yeah.
Static, for example, has had a bit of a bumpy ride
Right.
outside of his Milestone Comics origins.
That's true.
Yeah.
And even John Stewart,
Mm.
despite his popularity in the animation,
Yeah.
has often been overshadowed by Hal Jordan in the comics.
Right.
So it's like there was this disconnect
Yeah.
between what DC was achieving in animation
Yeah.
and how those characters were being utilized in other mediums.
So then the question becomes why?
What factors might have contributed to that disconnect?
Well, one argument is that DC's approach to their comic book universe
Yeah.
has historically been very focused on a core group of characters.
Right.
Superman,
Mhm.
Batman, Wonder Woman.
Right.
And it can be tough for other heroes, regardless of race,
Right.
to break into that inner circle
Mm.
and gain the same level of recognition.
Okay, so that's the comic book side of things.
Yeah.
But then we come to live action,
Right.
and it's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah.
You flagged Black Lightning as a show.
Mm.
That had a lot of potential,
Yeah.
but maybe didn't quite reach the cultural impact
Mm-hmm.
of some of Marvel's projects.
Yeah.
What do you think held it back?
Well, Black Lightning was a fantastic show
Mhm.
with a powerful message
Yeah.
about family, community,
Yeah.
and fighting for what's right.
Right.
But it was also a very grounded,
Yeah.
street-level story.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have the same kind of global scale.
Yeah. Or epic, interconnected universe
Yeah.
feel that Marvel had cultivated with its films.
And, of course, there's the elephant in the room,
Mhm.
Black Panther.
Yes.
I mean, that film was a phenomenon.
Absolutely.
It shattered box office records,
Yeah.
sparked a global cultural movement,
Mhm.
and proved that Black superheroes could not only lead blockbuster films,
Yeah.
but also tell stories that resonated deeply
Right.
with audiences worldwide.
Absolutely. Black Panther was a game changer
Yeah.
in so many ways.
Yeah.
It showcased a visually stunning Afrofuturistic world,
Mm-hmm.
explored themes of identity
Yeah.
and responsibility,
Right.
and featured a predominantly Black cast
Yeah.
of complex,
Mm-hmm.
multidimensional characters.
And it wasn't just about representation for representation's sake.
Exactly.
It was about telling a compelling story with
Yeah.
universal themes
Yeah.
that just happened to be centered on Black characters
Right.
and experiences.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that Black Panther's success wasn't a fluke.
Right.
It was part of a larger strategy by Marvel
Yeah.
to diversify its heroes
Mm-hmm.
and tell stories that reflected a broader range of perspectives.
Right. And that's where Sam Wilson's journey comes in.
Right.
From Falcon to Captain America.
Yeah.
You got this character who started out as a sidekick,
Yeah.
but gradually earned his place as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really powerful arc
It is.
that speaks to themes of mentorship,
Yeah.
legacy,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately proving yourself worthy
Right.
of a mantle that carries so much weight.
And what's fascinating is that Marvel didn't shy away
Yeah.
from the complexities of that transition.
Mm-hmm.
They addressed the historical weight
Right.
of the Captain America symbol,
Yeah.
the expectations placed on Sam, and even the skepticism
Mm-hmm.
that he faced from some quarters.
Exactly. They didn't just hand him the shield
Right.
and say, okay, you're Captain America now.
Yeah.
They made him earn it,
Yeah.
both in terms of his own personal growth and improving to the world
Right.
that he was capable of carrying that legacy forward.
Exactly.
And then you have Luke Cage,
yes.
a character who brings a completely different dynamic to the table.
Oh, huh?
He's grounded in the realities of
Right.
street-level crime
Yeah.
and social injustice.
Right.
But he also embodies this sense of community
Yeah.
and resilience.
Absolutely.
And one of the articles you shared
Yeah.
pointed out that Luke Cage's portrayal in the Netflix series was particularly interesting
Uh-huh.
because it delved into the complexities of
Yeah.
Black masculinity and
Yeah.
the pressures
Right.
that come with being a protector
Yeah.
and a role model.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about punching bad guys.
Right,
It
yeah.
was about exploring the nuances of
Yeah.
what it means to be a Black man
Mhm.
in a world that often views you with suspicion and fear.
So we're seeing these different approaches, different
Yes.
themes, different ways of being a hero. But one thing that a couple of your sources touched on
Yeah.
was this idea that DC's Black heroes sometimes struggle to break free
Oh, yeah.
from the shadow of the company's biggest icons.
That's an interesting point.
You see it with characters like Cyborg,
Mm-hmm.
who's deeply connected to the Teen Titans and the
Right.
Justice League,
Right.
but hasn't really had the opportunity to step out on his own and
Yeah.
lead his own narratives.
And there's the argument that John Stewart,
Right.
despite being a powerful
Mm.
and popular Green Lantern,
Yeah.
is often perceived as being secondary to Hal Jordan.
Right. It's like he's always Green Lantern #2,
Yeah.
even though he's more than capable of holding his own.
It raises the question of whether DC has fully embraced the potential
Right.
of their Black heroes to stand on their own,
Mm-hmm.
to be the central figures in their own stories,
Yeah.
rather than being perpetually tethered
Right.
to established icons.
Right. And it makes me wonder if they were given that chance. What kind of stories could we see?
Mm.
What are we missing out on
Right.
by not allowing these characters to reach their full potential?
Well, think about someone like Mr. Terrific.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant inventor,
Mm-hmm.
a strategic genius,
Right?
and a martial artist.
Yeah.
He could easily lead a story
Yeah.
that combines high-tech espionage
Mm-hmm.
with social commentary,
Right.
exploring themes of innovation,
Yeah.
responsibility,
Mhm.
and the challenges of being a Black man
Right.
in a world that often underestimates your intelligence.
I'm already picturing that movie.
And then there's Icon and Rocket,
Yeah.
a superhero duo
Yeah.
with a dynamic that really hasn't been explored enough.
Right.
Their backstory touches on slavery,
Wow.
time travel,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mhm.
complexities of power.
Yeah.
There's so much potential there
Mm-hmm.
to tell a story that's both action-packed
Right.
and thought-provoking.
Yeah.
One that examines a legacy of oppression
Right.
and the responsibility that comes with wielding extraordinary abilities.
And let's not forget Steele,
Yeah.
a character who literally forged his own path.
He did.
He could lead a story that's about defying expectations,
Mm-hmm.
overcoming adversity, and
Yeah.
proving that you don't need to be born with superpowers
Yeah.
to make a difference.
And what's interesting is that DC has actually started to move
Yeah.
in this direction with some of their recent projects.
Mm-hmm.
They've greenlit a new Static Shock movie,
Okay.
and there are rumors of a potential Mr. Terrific project
Right.
in development.
So maybe we're starting to see a shift,
Yeah.
recognition that these characters deserve their own time to shine.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, Marvel continues to expand its roster of Black heroes.
Right.
And they're not just focusing on the big names.
Exactly. They've got characters like Blue Marvel,
Yeah.
who grapples with prejudice and the burden of legacy in a way that's both powerful and heartbreaking.
You mentioned Blue Marvel earlier, and I'm curious to hear more about why he stands out to you.
Yeah.
What makes his story so compelling?
Well, for me, it's the tragedy of his character. He's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Possibly one of the strongest heroes in the Marvel Universe.
Wow.
But he's forced to hide his true identity.
Right.
Because of the fear and racism that would be directed towards him.
Right.
If the world knew who he really was.
It's that classic superhero dilemma, right?
Yeah.
Wanting to use your powers for good, but knowing that the world might not be ready to accept you for who you are.
Exactly.
And then you have characters like Misty Knight and Colleen Wing who operate on a much smaller scale.
Right.
But their stories are no less impactful.
They bring that street-level perspective.
Yeah.
That grit and determination that comes from fighting for survival in a world that often feels stacked against you.
And they're a testament to the power of female friendship.
Yeah.
And the importance of having someone to fight alongside you. Absolutely. Someone who understands your struggles and supports you through thick and thin.
Right.
And speaking of powerful women,
we
can't forget Riri Williams, Ironheart. Talk about taking on a legacy.
She's brilliant. She's fearless.
Yeah.
And she's not afraid to challenge the status quo.
Right.
She represents the next generation of heroes. Those who are stepping up to fill the shoes of those who came before them while also forging their own paths and making their own mark on the world.
It's inspiring to see how both Marvel and DC are expanding the definition of what it means to be a Black superhero. There's such a diverse range of characters, each with their own unique stories, struggles, and triumphs.
Right.
It's no longer just about having a few token Black heroes. It's about showcasing a tapestry of experiences that reflects the richness and complexity of Black identity.
Yeah. And that's what makes this conversation so fascinating. You know, we're not just talking about fictional characters. We're talking about representation, visibility, the power of storytelling to shape our understanding of the world and of ourselves.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this topic, what are some key takeaways you think our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, I think one of the most important things to remember is that this is an ongoing journey.
Right.
Both Marvel and DC have made significant strides in terms of Black superhero representation. But there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the quantity of Black heroes. It's about the quality of their stories. Are they being given the same opportunities for character development, for leadership, for nuanced portrayals? Are they being relegated to sidekick roles? Or are they being allowed to take center stage and drive their own narratives?
And I think that's where the listener's input becomes so valuable. You know, you've given us a wealth of information, different perspectives, thought-provoking articles. Now it's about taking that knowledge and applying it to your own engagement with these characters and stories.
Exactly. Don't just passively consume these narratives. Think critically about them. Ask yourself what messages are being conveyed. Are there any harmful stereotypes being perpetuated? Are there any missed opportunities for deeper exploration?
And most importantly, don't be afraid to voice your opinions. Support the creators and projects that are doing it right. And hold accountable those who are falling short. The more engaged and informed the audience is, the more likely we are to see progress in terms of meaningful and authentic representation.
Now, before we go, I have to ask you one last question.
Based on something that really stood out in your research, you pointed out this idea that DC has this untapped potential with characters like Mr. Terrific, Icon, Rocket, and Steel. If you could give one of those characters the full Black Panther treatment, a big budget film with thoughtful writing and cultural impact, who would it be and why?
That's a tough one. They all have such unique qualities. But if I had to choose, I'd probably go with Mr. Terrific. I think his intellect and his moral compass would resonate with audiences, and his story could explore themes of innovation, responsibility, and the importance of using your gifts to make the world a better place.
I can already picture that movie poster.
Yeah.
Mr. Terrific? The world's third smartest man?
And remember, it's not just about the powers or the costume.
It's about the person beneath the mask.
Yeah.
Their motivations, their struggles, their humanity.
Right.
That's what makes a superhero truly compelling.
Well said. So to our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring these characters and their stories. There's a whole world of fascinating narratives out there waiting to be discovered. And you might be surprised by what you find.
Happy reading and watching.
Yeah.
Until next time.